enjoying this hobby. Really? 88. Math here about 25 years now. I started with a Blackfoot. I had one. My uncle said he'd fix it for me, and I went to my first race, and I don't think I missed a weekend for about the first year and a half straight. I've never took a break. Some of us have to do for family or job reasons, or just get away from it a little bit. But it's something I've always loved and enjoyed, and we're happy to be here to help you with it. Nathan, he's probably got just as much time behind a wheel.
Yeah, started when I was 6, so 24 years I've been racing, and started off I think with a Gold Pan RC10, and then as far as CustomWorks goes, since 2004 I think, somewhere around there. They've been great, learned a lot. It's a hobby, but us guys and our toys, we're competitive. It doesn't matter what it is, so that's really it for me.
I think one of the key things here is we have a lot of experience even though we're young. By some people's standards, not us getting older. But there's a lot of common things we see that are wrong or don't get set up right in the first place that are really simple. And we're going to go over that, go quick and short. And then we're going to get to the heart of the matter, which for those of you who attended the seminars before, we'll go on about car setup on the corners. I think we're going to speed up through that a little bit more today. We'll still go on the key points of it. But I think for as tricky as this track has been, Scott and do a wonderful job. But I'd say in the last 5 years, this has probably been the slickest we've seen it, and the most change throughout the round. So I think it's probably important to get value out of this for today, and to go over the points of what's working well for these conditions and the differences between like an EDM or a sprint car or late model, and why you'll make those choices. One of the first things I always start off with in this discussion is the radio. You don't have it set centered under your control. You can't ever have a relationship with the car. I mean, that is your control. That's the name of the game. One of the first things we see wrong, not set correctly amongst guys, are their endpoint adjustments for the EPA on a Futaba radio, but the endpoint, I think they call it. Yep. Whose radio?
It's probably Frank.
Spectrum doesn't travel. All it is, it tells the servo for the limits of the linkages that it'll only go this far before that steering arm hits that caster block. And then same for the right. You set that with having your dual rate, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, turn that up or down for the amount of steering you have. You turn that to 100%, and then you set that travel number to where you turn full wheel, it'll only turn to where this will just barely touch that caster block. That servo is amazingly strong, and if it's not set, it'll pull that arm up. It might pull the servo off the chassis. It depends. It'll tweak a bunch of chassis, and it'll also make the radio not feel the same left or right, or feel more aggressive than it needs to do. That's one big key. I mean, a lot of guys go, well, I'll just cut it to 60%. So that's where it doesn't hit. But then it also doesn't make you relevant to your buddy who's done it. So now when you go, hey, how much steering you're running? Oh, I've got 80%, I've got 45. It doesn't make any sense. It gives you an idea how much wheel you're actually using. You don't necessarily need it all. So sometimes you take a little bit out, your cars might be working a little better. So it's a good tattletale of the overall health of the car. The other really helpful feature with all these nice tunable radios we have is what's called the exponential. Basically what that does is it'll make the initial feeling of the wheel when you turn it to the car less sensitive. And as you turn the wheel, it'll increase its gain. So what does that mean to you and I? When your car feels twitchy down the straightaway, you just want to move it a little bit, our hands are shaking because we're nervous, you can move the wheel a little bit more and get less movement with the car. So when you turn the wheel to do the normal movement into the corner, you'll get what feels like a normal amount of movement. For a Spectrum radio, you want that to be a positive number. For a Futaba radio, a negative number. Same thing, they just have evaluations.
I don't want to answer electronics.
not sure, but if you bring your radio over, I can tell you.
It's big.
What's that?
It's big.
Gotcha. But that's, I mean, something I always find myself kind of left with.
Is that something you do in your normal setup, or is that something you just kind of wait till you're getting ready to race and say, okay, I need to do this because I couldn't get this in my initial setup with your...
Rule of thumb for me is always start vanilla, turn features off. So start with that at 0, but learn to appreciate it after you have your car working reasonably, at least honestly well, like you'd hand it to somebody else.
Then you'll go to that.
Then you can feel it, and then you can quantify it. Wow, I like that. No, I don't. You might not like it. You might like it more sensitive.
Okay.
But you have to make that opinion for you, and the only way to do that is to start without it.
Okay.
A typical good number to start at is about, I'd say, 15. That's enough that you can feel it. You don't have to sit there and squeeze your eyes and go yeah or no. And do it, try it when you feel like your car's running well. It's not something that's going to make or break you. It's a free change, and you might like it. If you don't like it, turn it right back to 0 and go on about your day.
Just to kind of reiterate what he's saying, he does use that in his radio, and personally, it's a personal preference because you don't necessarily have to have that, you know what I mean? But it is a nice tuning aid, like you said, to be there. To keep going on it a little bit, when you set your steering and you have it at full lock left and full lock left, doesn't necessarily mean you always have to keep it there. You can take a little bit of steering out to go with the track. Like today, as the day went on, the grip came up, you might not have had to turn as much wheel. That would have been a perfect time to try what Arnie was saying, or just take a little bit of steering out, travel in your radio.
In the dual rate? In the dual rate?
Well, depending on which radio, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so going to the throttle, this is the number one on the radio, is when you're setting up, you set your steering up, and then if it's an electric car, you set your speed controller and everything, and I can't tell you how many times that someone says, Nate, come drive this, tell me what you think. And I pick the radio up, and I give it throttle a little bit, nothing. I give it throttle a little bit more, and then I give it throttle like halfway, and all of a sudden it just shoots and takes off. Well, it's not set up right. There's no way you can be smooth with the radio like that. I'm not, some people like to give it a little bit of trigger because, again, like he was saying, when you're nervous, let's say you're a little nervous. Well, it's okay to give it a little bit, but, quarter throttle without getting anything and getting 100% and nothing, you will never be consistent, ever. So you got to set the speed controller right with the radio. And then when one more thing before Arnie takes it is, again, the track has been slick this week. You don't have to go full bore on your motor. You can bring the travel on Spectrum. It's called travel. You can bring the travel down on your throttle to coincide with what the track is doing.
Basically, you have that travel set, and when you set your speed controller, it's at 100 for squeezing the throttle or full brake. If you turn that for the throttle side of it down from 100 to, let's say, 95, it doesn't sound like a big deal, 95%, but it'll really take a lot of that top end punch out of the car and settle it down.
And your lap times will go down, I promise.
When the track is really slick like this, motoring down, that's the first. I don't even think I got my car tires on, and these guys have went and made a few laps, and they had 6.5s in.
And I'm motoring down again.
Nathan and Frank, and they both come out, and the first thing I'm like ready to go out, and they go, "No way on a 6.5." I'm like, "Really?" Yep, get your 7.5 out. I'm like, "Okay." And I didn't even think twice to trust them, but I mean, it's like. Sometimes I think a lot of guys see a car go fast and they think, man, it's got a lot of motor because it's able to use all of what it's got, but it has a lot.
I'm going less motor in my late model. I'm at a 7.5. I'm going to an 8.5. The way the heats are set up, the late model heat is kind of in between, where the electric Sprint is in the higher numbers. It's starting to kind of get the dust off the track and groove a little bit. Whereas the beginning numbers is the truck-based EDMs, the buggy-based EDMs. The late model's right in the middle, so it's like really slick, like you're searching for grip. So I'm going to an 8.5, and I won't even use all of it. So you don't have to put monster motor to get your lap times down. It's actually the complete opposite.
Is there a better preference, an 8.5 turned down as opposed to a 6.5?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Either one.
Well, here's the thing. You can turn down the motor as much as you want, but you can't turn down that initial punch that you get. So if you're running a 6.5, yeah, you might program the speed controller to say, okay, halfway down the straightaway or a quarter down the straightaway, I'm going to come down to 75%, 50%, whatever it is. But that initial trigger, when you pull it, it's either a 6.5 or an 8.5, and that's the main difference. Getting up off the corner at this track and at this event, at any oval race, if you don't get off the corner, you're not going to the front, and that's the difference.
To speak for motors by brand, I think we're all familiar, like the Novak series motors. They don't feel as coggy as far as the field goes, or the Tikans. They feel, you can feel the cogging of the magnets, but it's not near as snappy as like the LRP motors.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily parlay to more power or less power, but it definitely does when you release the throttle and let it coast from when you're going in. When it has a really heavy cog to it, it's like somebody getting in your car and pumping the brakes as you're trying to slow down.
It's like instant drag brake as soon as you let off.
It's hard to buffer that out of the car naturally. We've tried putting a little throttle leak on it or something, but for those who have those types of motors, you might find you try a motor that doesn't have as much cog, and the car actually stays planted a lot better into the corner where it doesn't have that, that sharp thumping on the tires. Because we are all on the edge of the bike all time, and it just all those little inconsistencies is what brings us up out of the track. I think getting into the car portion of this, I'll kind of jump ahead, is, speaking of the inconsistencies, is simply like shocks and oil. I think a lot of guys have seen cars go out today and they've been slicking, and see other guys rear end drops and it's almost doing a wheel stand when it's rather slick. I think Max is probably already packed his stuff up. There's a black or dark blue 18 car. He's running really, for what Nathan and I consider kind of our run-of-the-mill setup, which is like the medium piston, like a 30 to 40 weight oil. He's running that same oil, but with the large pistons, which lets his car move a lot faster. And by dropping that oil or making that piston hole bigger, it just tricks the car into thinking, hey, it's got a lot more fight out there, and it really does. It lets it roll and exaggerate all the movements. So when it hits the throttle, it'll transfer more, it'll travel more and transfer more weight to the rear. It'll dump more to the front, it'll roll more to the side. So it just acts like there's a lot of bite without doing it. We've kind of been back and forth between the pistons and trying things. I think typically most guys, if you have speaking for CustomWorks car, probably the medium piston in 30 weight associated has been like really good out there. We go a little thicker than that, 35 or 40, it starts bringing the car out of the track. And this is, I think, one of those things where if we were at King Wings weekend or Haydock, or I don't think we typically go, it's not that big a deal if he's on 40 or I'm on 30, but this week it matters. Getting everything you can into the track.
I really think it's something to really think about, because like what Arnie was saying, it really, with the dusty situation, it's really making the car feel into the track. It takes a few minutes to change the piston out. You got to put new oil in, but I really think it's a good change for you guys to try this weekend, and I really think you're going to feel into the track. And if you're running 30 weight oil with medium pistons, stick with the 30 weight oil. Just try the large piston and see what you think. Basically, the main thing that it's going to do is make it go and feel into the track, and just get that more grip that everybody's trying to find, as you've seen all week long.